The 1662 Catechism of the Book of Common Prayer asks confirmation candidates, "Dost thou not think that thou art bound to believe and to do, as they," that is, godparents and parents, "have promised for thee," that is, at their infant baptism? And of course, the default answer to this question in today's cynical and individualist age, dare I say, is no. Why should I believe something just because my parents and godparents believed it, just because it has been the shared belief of my people for generations and centuries? That doesn't mean that I am bound to believe it myself at all, right? It's up to me, nobody else. And prompted by this line of thought, some people have even sought unbaptism ceremonies when they were baptized as babies, sometimes through pagan or even openly satanic ceremonies. The idea promoted in our society is that we, as individuals, should trust ourselves more than our family, more than our wider society, more than godparents or anyone, and that my conclusions on these matters are as good as anybody else's, no matter how ignorant I am. So I think this is why it's a commonplace of modern literature to valorize orphanhood. Think about it. Most of the heroes of contemporary Western novels and cinema have either lost or they've been estranged from their parents. Oliver Twist, Mowgli, Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Bruce Wayne, Superman, Bambi, Elsa and Anna, just a few names, but you could find many more, especially in Disney franchises. Don't suppose that this is a coincidence. There's a pragmatic side to it, sure. Saves a lot of narrative baggage for the storyteller. It gives a compelling motivation to the lead character too, but there's surely something more telling that the most popular stories of our time are those which regard parents as baggage. The animus of the stories that modern parents tell our children, especially our daughters, is that to find themselves, they need to leave home, let it go, turn away and slam the door and sing, "I don't care what they're going to say, no right, no wrong, no rules for me, I'm free." I'll spare you the actual singing from Frozen, but how alarming to those imbued from childhood with the prayer book sensibilities that true freedom consists in inheriting belief from other older people, as we have always done. Many of them, our forefathers in the faith, died to pass it on to us. A year that every English Christian should bear in mind is AD 597. That's when Pope Gregory made St. Augustine the first Archbishop of Canterbury. It is said that when St. Gregory saw fair-haired Englishmen on sale at a slave market, he asked who they were. He was told that they were Angles, and he replied with the pun, "They're not Angles, they're angels." Frankly, I know some people who didn't come up with this joke dismiss it as a bad one, but I think that's a bit lazy of them. He said it first. Well, anyway, Pope Gregory dispatched St. Augustine to bring more of these angelic-looking people like me to the Christian faith. The heroic exploits of St. Augustine, his successors, and the holy kings and priests of Anglo-Saxon Britain make for fine reading. But already, when the missionary bishop arrived at the end of the 6th century to England, Christianity had long since been established in those lands, those islands. Before the English came to Britain, there were already British bishops, saints, martyrs, who died for the belief which they themselves had inherited and would pass on to their English successors. So let's go back before them to the 3rd century Roman Britain and the city of Verulamium, north of London. There lived a man whose death would give that city a new name. Himself a pagan, he was once startled by an unexpected visitor at his door, a man wearing the distinctive cloak of a Christian priest. This was in the days when Christianity was prohibited throughout the empire on pain of death. The priest, Amphibolus by name, sought refuge from the authorities and had heard of this man's good repute. The latter agreed to shelter him. They spent days and nights together in hushed conversation, fearing the step of the soldiers' boots outside. During those conversations, Amphibolus persuaded his host of the truth of the Christian faith. One day came that knock on the door that Christians have come to fear in many lands, through many generations, whether in ancient Rome or under the communists of the Soviet Union, and even now in North Korea, China, parts of the Middle East. The man swiftly took off Amphibolus's priestly robe and put it over his own clothes. The secret propagation of the faith by this brave and holy priest was more important now to him than his own life, because he was convinced that he would enjoy eternal felicity in the next life. While Amphibolus made his escape, the soldiers took the householder and tried to force him to recant. He replied, "My name is Alban, and I serve the one true God." So St. Alban, proto-martyr of Britain, was beheaded, and he gave his name to that city and to the abbey church which stands there to this day. There you can find relics of his body enshrined, where the Mass is offered daily in thanks for his gift and in hope of his prayers and aid. Though a cathedral of the Church of England, Roman Catholic Masses and Eastern Orthodox services of veneration are also regularly offered there, in the place where I was ordained and have been blessed to celebrate Mass myself. The St. Alban Chapel and Reliquary is a memorial of where St. Alban died for his belief. In our day, belief is taken as something opposed to reason, something that can't be explained, a kind of unjustifiable opinion which people have a right to hold if they individually wish, but not to impose on others. Something which we may choose once we've slammed the door on our parents. Belief is even treated in Britain as a protected characteristic, though the legal protections sometimes seem to extend more to non-Christian beliefs than to those of the nation's historic faith. So, when we claim in the Catechism to believe the articles of the Christian faith, we may think that we are supposed to submit to a long list of impossible things to believe before breakfast. But it's not so. St. Alban's example shows us that belief is not unthinking assent. It is not opposed to reason. We do not know the content of his conversations with Amphibolus, but whatever he heard, it was enough to make him give up his life for the sake of the itinerant missionary priest. He was persuaded of the truth of the faith. This does not just apply to British martyrs, of course. Apostles such as St. Peter and St. Paul were likewise convinced enough of the Christian faith that they died for it. Neither in their writings come across as particularly stupid or gullible men. They were intellectually convinced that Jesus had died for their sins, rose from the dead, and ruled over their lives. They thought, not just opined, thought that they had to entrust themselves to him and him alone as their saviour, and to obey him as their Lord. The faith for them was not just a matter of opinion, take it or leave it. It was literally the singular matter of life and death. But why did they come to believe it? How did their reasoning get them there? A considerable part of the answer to that question lies in what they had already inherited and were bound to believe. In the case of the apostles, that inheritance is obvious. It's their Jewish faith, transmitted to them by their families and their nation, and that gave them the basis on which to interpret the life and claims of Jesus. St. Alban was no Jew, but even his pagan understanding of the world prepared him, more thoroughly than secular modernism and Disney stories do, to accept the God whom Amphibolus preached and represented. Jesus famously claimed in one encounter that he could find greater faith in a pagan Roman centurion than in his own people. It's in Luke 7:9. The soldier understood hierarchy, authority, obedience, values despised by our modern heroes. Many of us in the West were raised by parents who firmly believe in the modern myths of independence, autonomy, and adulthood, which tell us that the fully realized human is the human cut off from family ties and social obligations, the human alone. This is utterly different from the tradition they grew up in, and which continues to cement the non-Western societies many of us call backward, even as our own society cascades into oblivion while theirs hold. The irony is that they believed this because the culture around them formed them to do so. Our own parents inherited the myth of self-invention, the very myth which makes an inheritance of anything a kind of taboo. They thought that making us orphans from our cultural, social, religious inheritance was the right thing to do, the best thing they could do for us, make us stand on our own 2 feet. So they don't have us baptized or make us attend Sunday school. So we could, once we've grown up, make decisions about these things for ourselves. But of course the problem was we lacked the basic framework necessary to make those decisions. And that framework, in a word, is trust. Trust is another, perhaps a better word for belief. What has been destroyed very actively and deliberately in Western countries is our capacity to trust parents and people in authority. We've been taught that skepticism is the norm, and so we have the society we deserve. And that's because we trusted in the wrong thing, in a myth, which has ultimately caused the incalculable harm of familial and social breakdown. A myth which seems to have a will of its own and is driving humanity to destruction. The catechism, exhortation to believe what our parents and godparents taught us, assumes that they too were taught the Christian faith by those before them. In our time, it comes as an invitation to repair the broken chain and to choose to trust what St. Alban and all the martyrs before and after him have trusted, that we may answer with him, "Yes, verily, and by God's help, so I will." If you are interested in what I've just said and want to read this and more, do look at my book, King Oswald's Heirs, available on Amazon now.